Elijah Arroyo is built in the mold of first-round busts. The number of tight ends who are lean, fast, and freaky athletes and get a ton of pre-draft hype before they quickly flame out in the NFL, it's a long list. Just in the past 8 draft classes, you have guys like O.J. Howard, David Njoku, Evan Ingram, Noah Fant, Dalton Kincaid, and of course Kyle Pitts himself. Those guys aren't bad NFL players. I would contend that most of them aren't even true busts, but they didn't live up to their draft hype at all. The idea of a tight end who is an unstoppable mismatch, too big for defensive backs and too fast for linebackers, it is tantalizing. But tight end is one of those positions where there's a ton of examples of when teams bet on traits and they didn't get the weapon that they wanted. True impact tight ends are very difficult to find, and for every hit, it seems like there's 2 or 3 misses. And that's why I'm rather skeptical of this style of tight end. In college football, there's more space over the middle of the field with the wider hashes, and that allows these players to thrive just based on their athleticism. But when you enter the NFL, everything gets tighter and faster, and you have to be able to block to get on the field. That is the transition that we're talking about, and that is why these guys often struggle. But I'm actually really optimistic for Arroyo as he makes that transition. I think this is a really solid selection at a position of need. So let's jump into the tape and break down why Arroyo is different than many tight ends who came before him, and why I think the Seahawks might have just gotten their true mismatched tight end that they've been looking for. We're going to start with his run blocking before we get into everything that he is as a pass catcher, because there's a long ways to go. Now, the effort is there. That is important to point out. Arroyo weighed in at only 250 pounds, and he probably played lighter during the season, but he did throw his undersized frame around and try to move guys. Now, the way that he did that was often by dropping his head. On this play against Iowa State, the Hurricanes are running inside zone near the goal line. Arroyo is tasked with making a simple base block on the outside linebacker. But in his attempt to generate power and make contact, he drops his head. This is not a position that you want to be in when you're blocking. Arroyo's head is down and he's completely overextended. He is at the mercy of the defender, who easily sheds the block and gets into the backfield. These are the types of plays that are really concerning for Arroyo, because if you can't secure blocks like this, you just can't play true inline tight end. This is where a lot of these hyper athlete tight ends get into trouble, because if you can't consistently make this block, you're just limiting your snaps before you even get on the field. When he does make contact and he's able to latch on, he can move linebackers and defensive backs, but Arroyo just doesn't have a lot of power to move guys with proper technique. Here against Syracuse, it's the same story. Inside zone again from Miami, and again Arroyo is making a base block on this linebacker type. And just like the last clip, he's trying so hard to move this guy that he drops his head, can't sustain the block, and lets the defender slip into the backfield. This was a pattern on his tape, and this will need to be cleaned up in the NFL, and I'm sure they're already working on it. I don't think that at his size, he's ever going to be able to move people the way that you would like, but fortunately this scheme doesn't really emphasize this as much as others. Kubiak needs guys who can block on the move, take good angles, and maintain positioning. That's not something that Arroyo has shown on tape, but that is something that can be pretty easily taught. He has the right effort and mentality in run blocking, and I think in time he can develop his understanding of the nuances that you need at this position. I doubt this will ever be a strength of his game, and right now it is a massive weakness, but I think with good development, he can become a good enough run blocker to be used in line. Okay, but let's get to the real reason why Arroyo was drafted. He is really talented in the receiving game. We're going to start with the foundation of his game, which is of course his excellent speed for a player of his size. Here the Hurricanes are running a really interesting take on the four verts concept. I personally love dressing up familiar concepts with motions and switch releases, but honestly this might be too much. The four verts concept is exactly what it sounds like. You have 4 routes attacking vertical. Here's how they get to this on this play. To the bottom of our screen, this is an 18-yard comeback route. It's pretty standard for these outside vertical routes to convert to comebacks if the receiver can't win over the top, and I'd bet that's what happens here. This was initially drawn up to be a go ball, but he converts it because he can't win. But beyond this route, not much is standard. Arroyo is coming off of a short motion, and he's the guy who attacks up the seam. That motion puts just a little bit of stress on the defense, as they do have to switch this off at the snap. The outside receiver is running a post route, and then they have a tight end running a wheel route up the sideline. But all of that, all of the fancy bells and whistles, they don't really mean much, because on this play, Arroyo is just too fast. This safety has plenty of cushion, but Arroyo quickly eats that up, puts a quick move on him, and then just runs by him. This is the type of speed that we're talking about. Yes, there's going to be more speed in the NFL. Obviously, that is going to be an adjustment, but he has that mismatch type speed that teams are looking for. Elijah Arroyo had the 4th most deep receptions and the 5th most yards from his deep receptions in the entire FBS. This speed was game-breaking, and it will continue to pose problems for defenses at the next level. Here, he wasn't just running by a linebacker, he was running by a safety, and he made it look easy. But it's more than just that. Speed is great, but it takes a lot more than that to win in the NFL. So what else does Arroyo bring? Well, let's look at this play here against Florida. On this play, the Gators are in a very simple coverage. They're presenting a too-high shell, but using weak rotation to get into cover 3. And the Hurricanes are attacking them with this double crossing pattern. Arroyo is running a post, and they have a crossing route coming from the other side. This is a great way to pick apart cover 3. Crossing routes have always been a popular way to break down any single high coverage, but I really like how they have it drawn up here. Arroyo's route is going to run right underneath the safety, and with the field corner occupied, this crosser is also going to be coming wide open as well. This is a very nice route from Arroyo. He has excellent speed for a tight end, as we've already covered, but I really like how he maintains it throughout the entire route and quickly gets the spot that he needs to be. But what makes this play really impressive is how Arroyo adjusts to the pass. He might not be dominant in making contested catches, we'll get to that later, but his catch radius is impressive and he easily adjusts to the ball. This play really shows the best of Elijah Arroyo. He's a player with excellent speed who can be a threat down the field, but is also a very natural hands catcher. This is a rather unique profile, as a lot of these fast tight ends don't have this level of catch radius. He's not just a guy who can shred defenses down the seams, but he's a really friendly target for his quarterback. Here's another play that shows off the same things, his speed and his catching skills. Miami is running a mesh concept on this play. Mesh is 2 shallow crossing routes with something attacking the middle of the field right behind them. It's a really solid man beater with the double shallow crossing routes, but it also works well against zone. If you are getting zoned, then they're going to be working to sort out these crossers, and the dig route will be working to find space right behind the zone defenders. It's a pretty cool concept, and it's run at pretty much every level of football, so this is something that he's going to see a lot in the NFL as well. Here, Arroyo is running this dig route to settle over the middle of the field against zone. Since this is man coverage, Ward should be working either of these crossers, and they're both completely wide open, but the early pressure makes him scramble around. I would bet that this is just scramble drill from Elijah Arroyo. Maybe Miami has this adjustment baked into their playbook, but regardless, Arroyo turns this dig route into kind of a crosser as he runs away from the defender. This is an excellent pass from Ward, I'm not going to deny that, but it's also a really nice play from Arroyo. He smoothly tracks the ball in the air and uses late hands to secure the catch right behind the defender. This is going to be a large piece of how he's used in this system, attacking over the middle of the field where he can use his speed to pull away from defenders. And again, he's not going against a linebacker here, but this is a safety. He still can't keep up with Arroyo, and this is a big play. This is the core of Elijah Arroyo as a player. He brings speed and remarkable catching ability. This is a player who's going to be able to threaten defenses vertically and adjust nicely to the ball. Beyond that, as a pass catcher, Arroyo does have some explosion with the ball in his hands. It's nothing exceptional, he's not Tyler Warren, but he does have some good plays. He's less of a broken tackle machine, but he does have good speed to quickly eat up space and get some yards after the catch. He's also not an exceptional route runner. Don't expect him to have super crisp routes. He'll take too many steps when getting out of his breaks and just doesn't move very smoothly. He's not really a Travis Kelce type because Kelce wins with his routes. That's just not Arroyo at all. But for how he's going to be used, I don't think that his route running is going to be tremendously important. And with that, let's transition to discussing his role in this offense. Because to me, the most important thing for these freaky speed tight ends is properly deploying them. And I think that's what Kubiak is going to be able to do. They've already talked about using him as an X receiver, and I think there's already a ton of misconceptions about what they mean with that. Is Elijah Arroyo going to get isolated on the backside of concepts and win contested catches deep down the sideline? No, obviously not. He didn't really show that much as far as contested catch ability. He wasn't really asked to do that much, with only 5 of his 47 targets being contested at all. Maybe he can be a contested catch weapon, but we just don't know. But playing X, particularly in a Shanahan offense, isn't really about that. What I think John Schneider was talking about is using Arroyo to clear coverages. You can have a bunch of slot receivers, but sooner or later you're going to need a guy that defenses can't effectively press to open up space for your underneath weapons. That is the version of X receiver that Arroyo can play. Here against Iowa State, they're trying to press him with this corner, but it just doesn't work. Arroyo quickly slides around this guy completely unaffected and gets wide open. When Arroyo is split out wide, this is what his role is going to be. Slide off of press coverage, get downfield, and open up space for JSN and Cooper Kupp. He can absolutely do that, and his size and speed make him perfect for that role. In addition to that, Arroyo can both be used in the slot and off the line of scrimmage as a vertical threat. It's not just his speed, but again, we've covered his catch radius makes him a true threat on all of these crossing routes that this scheme is built on. Running a hard play action fake with him screaming across the middle of the field sounds like an easy way to generate chunk plays. And then, of course, you can use him in line. This is not his best role, and I do think you'll have to limit how much you play him there, but he can do it. If I had to bet, I would say that Arroyo will be used similarly to Juwan Johnson for the Saints last year. He was used in line about 55% of the time as that traditional tight end. 31% of his time was spent in the slot, and he also spent 12% aligned out wide. That is the skill set that Arroyo has, and I think he'll be deployed very similarly. I really like this selection. I don't quite see it as a massive steal like John Schneider does, with the talk of him being a top 15 talent, but I really do see the vision. Just like a lot of guys in this class, he has a unique profile and needs to be weaponized by these coaches. The projection is pretty clean for him to be a contributor for the Seahawks, and they did need a tight end in the long term. The combination of Arroyo and Barner is very exciting for years to come. That is a core duo, and it makes a ton of sense to me. It looks like Noah Fant is going to stay for the 2025 season, and I think he will have a pretty similar role to Elijah Arroyo, but I'd bet that this is his last year in Seattle, and then they'll turn over the keys to the young guys. So back to the question at the top. What makes Elijah Arroyo different from all of those athletic, highly drafted busts? Well, I have 3 things. Firstly, he was taken in the middle of the second round instead of early in the first round. That just makes the expectations so much more reasonable. If he's a consistent 700 or 800 yard per season type player, then that's not a bust like it would be for a guy like Kyle Pitts, who is taken 4th overall. That is going to be huge for Arroyo. But also, as we've discussed, the natural way that he catches the ball gives him a huge advantage and will make him a much more consistent and reliable target. But to me, the biggest thing that makes me believe in Elijah Arroyo is that Kubiak knows exactly how to use this player on all of the crossing routes and up the seam to get the most out of him. That is what I'm truly excited about with this pick, and even if he's just a rotational player to start, he's going to have an impact. I'm giving this selection a B+ grade. I really like it, and I think it's a good move, but it's not an incredible value in my book. Arroyo has clear strengths with his speed and his catch radius, but that's pretty much it. He also does have a slight injury history. Obviously, the Seahawks are comfortable with it, but that is something to monitor as well. I think he's going to be a really important piece to this offense, and Kubiak is going to be able to specifically weaponize those strengths, but he's not a complete player. Now, being a complete player doesn't matter quite as much on offense as it would on defense, so I do think that Kubiak can use him even if he has a more limited skill set, and that's why I think this is a really good move. I'm excited to get to watch him in Seattle, and I think that Kubiak is going to love the unique skills that he brings. Thanks for watching. So much more on this draft class is coming soon, and I have some really fun off-season projects coming as well. Subscribe for all of that, and go Hawks.